Can y'all see the slides?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right, I think we're about ready to get started. I'm going to turn over the floor here to Sam Shorter to bring our meeting to an open.
All right, welcome everybody, and good afternoon, and welcome to the ASCE Austin Branch October meeting. I am Sam Shorter, your branch president. We have an exciting program here today with a presentation from the University of Texas Capital Planning and Construction Office. First off, we want to thank every single member who's joined us today and let you know that the new committee and board members are off to the races, fulfilling their duties and planning for a great 21 and 22. While on the topic, we did want to let you know that there are a couple of committee member spots still available. Please see the newsletter or reach out to me or any board member. Brief COVID update. We're going to continue virtual meetings through the end of the year, and we'll keep everybody well apprised of any changes to our meeting and its format. And then it's not too early to start thinking about the branch continuing education conference. That conference is going to be held this spring. And I know that Jane Ellen and Steve Zobel will be looking for volunteers, speakers, and there's opportunities for you to present and to attend. So with that, stay tuned to these announcements. We have many opportunities to both volunteer and socialize via the branch or any of our groups, YMF, EWRI, or SEI. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tyler Dube, and I'm your VP of programs for this year. And one thing I want to share about myself, especially if you haven't met me before, I grew up bleeding burnt orange. I went to UT Austin and earned a bachelor's in civil engineering. I'm a former Longhorn Band trumpet player, section leader, drum major, and proud Texas Ex. Currently, I'm serving the university on the Project Management and Construction Services Technical Review Team for civil plan review of projects like the ones that we're going to hear about today, conducted also on the UT system property statewide. So it should be no surprise that my first instinct for the programming for today's ASCE luncheon was to find a really high profile UT project to highlight. And I actually found two. So later in the program, we're going to feature presentations on the Red River realignment and the DKR South End Zone that have helped reshape the UT campus and how we navigate through it. But first, we're going to hear several announcements from our board and committee members. And if we're going too fast, the announcement slides and program will be posted to our website, so you can review the materials there. And you may notice something that looks kind of like a barcode in the upper right-hand corner. This is something that we're trying to do a little bit more consistently in our meetings. And if you're not familiar, these are called QR codes, and most smartphones recognize these through the camera app. So you can act like you're going to take a picture and follow the link to the websites that are being referenced on the slides. Our first announcement is about sponsorship. Sponsorship helps keep the ASCE wheels turning for meetings, events, and donations to groups that are aligned with our mission. We're seeking branch sponsors, event sponsors, and meeting sponsors. At this time, I'd like everyone to pull out their smartphone, launch your camera app, scan the code, follow the link to sign up, and be a sponsor. This afternoon, you can expense it with your company and then ask for forgiveness later. That's what I do. This is how we make ASCE work. It just takes a little bit of time and a credit card number. But I'm asking for your support at the branch level, event level, meeting level, so that we can have really good events throughout the year. So let's test the chat. Let's give me a thumbs up if somebody plans on doing this. And if you forget to sign up as a sponsor, you'll probably be hearing from our sponsorship chair, Amos Emerson, real soon, because we have your email addresses from today's logins. The next announcement we have is about SEI. This is actually coming from the desk of Scott Wallace with SEI, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but he did ask me to deliver this message. SEI is an institute under ASCE whose mission is to advance and serve the structural engineering profession. And they do this primarily through three types of events: professional meetings, technical tours, and the Structural Engineering Talks, or SET. SEI offers professional meetings every other month, September through May. These meetings feature a presentation on some current projects, research, or developments in the structural engineering profession. The next meeting is November 18th and features Dr. Wasim Ghanum, Associate Professor at UTSA and one of the founding members of Austin's SEI chapter. He'll be presenting his latest research on bridge load testing using digital image correlation technology, making it faster, cheaper, and more accurate. The registration and more information can be found on ASCE's website or following the QR code on screen. Technical tours. Periodically, we replace our professional meeting with a technical tour. In the past, we've done tours of places like the Circuit of Americas and the Walla Creek Tunnel intake structure. Finally, we have our premier event, SET. In 2020 and 2021, we had to cancel due to the pandemic. But we're watching the experts and considering people's comfort levels as we determine when it's appropriate to hold it in person again. Currently, we're targeting spring of 22. And if you haven't been before, it's best described as TED Talks meets Alamo Drafthouse. The overall goal is to have 4 presentations, each departing from a normal in the weeds structural engineering technical presentation, but still are related to our profession. While relaxing with dinner and drinks at an Alamo theater, the presentations are lively, philosophical, inspirational, and thought-provoking. Sometimes they just make us rethink our approach to structural engineering. SET is a lot of fun and truly an Austin original, so watch the website for further developments. I'm now going to turn it over to Laura Friello to talk about a community service event.
Thank you, Tyler. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Friello. I am one of the Community Service and Public Relations Committee chairs for the 2021-2022 we're really excited that we're going to be able to actually start events up again this year. Have a couple different things planned, including some activities that I know people have been really rearing and wanting to do, and also probably partnering with a few other professional organizations this year. But first up, we do have a fall service event that my co-chair Michael will be chatting a little bit about for more information, but we are trying to do about 3 or so events this year. This is our first one up. We're really excited. And if anybody has questions, you can obviously reach us at emails, but I'll now hand it over to Michael to get more about the particulars for next month's event.
All right, thanks, Laura. Yeah, so as Laura mentioned, my name is Michael Chavez, but right now we are planning for our fall service event. Right now, we're targeting an event with Mobile Loaves and Fishes for an outdoor hands-on event. Mobile Loaves and Fishes, if you hadn't heard of it, is an organization that helps to provide affordable permanent housing and community for the disabled and chronically homeless in Central Texas. Typically, the events that they have on site are tending to the community garden, as well as light landscaping. So if this is an event that you think you're interested in, we're targeting a Saturday in November. So either November 6th, 13th, or 20th, targeting 3 to 4 hours on Saturday morning. If you're interested, please email us with your name, your preferred date, again, either November 6th, 13th, or 20th, and email that to communityoutreach@austinasce.org. We're hoping to get responses by the end of this week so that we can get us signed up. Again, just reach out to us, communityoutreach@austinasce.org if you're interested. Thank you.
Next up is the Engineering Blitz 2021. This will be the 3rd annual STEM event that we've hosted at Keeling Middle School that educates young Austinites about engineering. If you haven't been, it takes about an hour out of your day going to visit a 6th grade class where you get to talk about you, what you do, and what it means to be a civil engineer. Then there's a prepared kit that we've put together for a STEM-based activity that the students break into small groups and compete against one another for the tallest tower constructed out of plastic cups and popsicle sticks, or the strongest paper bridge loaded with nuts, bolts, and washers. In the past, we've had about 40 volunteers visit 20 classrooms over a 2-day period. And the overwhelming feedback that we've gotten from volunteers was, please tell me when you're doing this again. This is way better than my morning Zoom meetings. It's way better than report writing. It's way better than QCing plans. It's a lot of fun. So at this time, we're asking for volunteers. You can take out your phone and scan the code on screen to sign up and block out time on your calendars the week after Thanksgiving. This is Tuesday, November 30th or Wednesday, December 1st. Again, it's in the morning. It'll be during the students' advisory period, and it's a lot of fun. More details about the event and who's going to be doing what will be shared with the volunteers and posted to the event page and by email as we get closer to the event. Next up is Kaylin Hudson with YMF.
Hey guys, good afternoon. So I'm Kaylin Hudson. I'm the YMF director. And for those of you who do not know, YMF is our younger member forum. And so anyone that's an ASCE member, 35 and younger, you're automatically enrolled into our listserv. So hopefully you guys are getting the newsletters. A couple events we have coming up. So we do social events and seminars, which are kind of lunch and learns, and then we do service events. Coming up down here, we have our Cidercade social. We're asking that people dress up for Halloween since it is next week, 6 to 8 p.m. And then a couple other events. We had our meeting last night that we brainstormed some events, and we will be doing a seminar with Reconnect Austin about the I-35 project on November 10th. And that will be kind of a hybrid in person at ECJ on UT's campus and a Zoom at 7 p.m. And then we're also looking at having a creek cleanup. We are with Keep Austin Beautiful. We have part of Shoal Creek. So we're looking at doing a creek cleanup on November 6th. So stay tuned for that. Sign up for our newsletters if for some reason you aren't getting it, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Next, we'll hear from Sarah Davis with EWRI.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am the president of EWRI Austin, and not sure how much you guys know about EWRI, but we are kind of like SCI, and we're an institute, but we focus on environmental and water resources. I've got a couple updates for you guys. Namely, we have recently transitioned our board members and our committee chairs to the fine folks that you're seeing on the screen. So if you know any of them, congratulate them on their positions, and we look forward to having a good year with them. We do have 2 events coming up that everyone in ASCE is welcome to join us on. The first one is a site tour of the new Waterloo Greenway Park. And Sam had mentioned this to me, but you guys were kind of encouraged to come out at the same time, but it will be next Tuesday, October 26th from 11 to 12. I think it's a fantastic park, and I personally haven't been there, but there's a whole lot of different civil elements going on. It's it's around the main entrance to the Waller Creek Tunnel, and just really brings together one of the long-term pieces of Waller Creek and the Greenway going through Austin. So we hope you're able to join us for that. It's from 11 to 12, and we're going to meet near the Moody Theater on the lawn. And then the next event we have, one of our major pillars or programs, you could say, is rain gardens. And we try to do at least one per semester. Sometimes we'll do maintenance visits, but we do actually have one coming up this weekend. I believe that we are working on kind of like the little feeder channel for a rain garden that's already constructed. And if you guys are interested in that at all, you can contact Eduardo Perez, who is our outreach coordinator, and it's at Garza High School. So thank you guys, and that's all I got from EWRI.
Thank you. And this is the end of our board and committee announcements. In a moment, we're going to hear from today's sponsor, Civil Team Engineers. They're going to share with you some news about their exciting new beginnings in their business launch last year, and we'll introduce today's speakers. If you have a question for our presenters that will follow the sponsorship announcement, you can post it in the chat, and time permitting, I'll moderate the Q&A with audience questions submitted through the chat feature. The meeting is being recorded today and will be posted to the branch's YouTube channel. And now I'm going to turn over the floor to Ken Polasik with Civil Team Engineers.
Yes, thanks. Right, my name is Ken Polasik, and a new member to Civil Team Engineers. I started about a month ago. Excited about it. I got about 30 years worth in the industry. I'll talk a little bit more about myself in a second, but I get the pleasure. I started working with business development as well as a project manager for both Cesar and Sharon with their new firm. They stood it up in 2020. We could all argue that that was maybe not the year to get started, but they're doing well. Even though they've got about 2 years under their belt, they bring about 70 years of collective experience within the city of Austin. And I don't want to steal too much thunder, but Sharon has permitted maybe over 400 projects within the city. And Cesar, of course, is really connected to UT with over 40 projects under his belt. As you can see on the list to the right, those are the things that they focus on. Civil engineering, permitting being a huge one, program management, construction management, municipal engineering, as well as utility site design and utility coordination. What really attracted me to Civil Team Engineers, yes, it's just the 2 of them, but they're aggressive, they're young, they're energetic, and as you guys know, they're extremely connected to some of the really exciting projects that they'll discuss here on some slides that are going around with the city. The takeaway, of course, is They bring experience and knowledge, which allows them to approach projects with a common sense approach, the use of teamwork and expertise. But the bottom line, and you guys know, they just have the ability to move the project forward. And if you are familiar with permitting in Austin, that is a huge advantage if you can move your project forward. So that's who we are. And then the next slide, please. I'll give you a little bit about who I am. I already stated, working with the marketing business development side for Cesar and Sharon. I'm also part of their technical staff. So that's a pleasure. Cesar and I are alumni out of Texas Tech. I have him by a few years. I also then went to A&M during my Air Force days and master's there in construction management. Retired out of the Air Force in 2006, then worked with another small firm here and out of Corpus Christi in San Antonio. And I'm proud to say I'm probably the oldest, newest EIT member within the state of Texas. Managed to figure out how you apply once you pass the test to get that certificate. So pleased to announce that I got that under my belt. And I also do a little bit of civic duty here in the city of Selma, being on the city council there. So that's where I'm at. I'm a kind of a touch point for the firm. So you'll see my contact information at the end. And following me will be Cesar Calderon, owner and principal to the firm, and then followed by his wife, Sharon Hamilton, who will talk next. So thank you very much.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Ken, for that. Like Ken said, Cesar Calderon, I've been here in Austin for 15 years now. Been working on a lot of City of Austin projects, do a lot of utility relocations, designs, and doing a lot of erosion controls, construction management. And then, one of the first projects that I started working with was the North End Zone at UT when I got here back in 2006. We worked on that, worked on the South End Zone, and worked on the second South End Zone, which is what you see there on the picture. Moving utilities out of the way, get that under wraps. And you are currently been doing involved in a lot of the UT, Speedway Mall and Robert K. Rowling Hall and the UT campus. We did a lot of studies for drainage and everything just to be able to get that Speedway Mall under. And currently are working at the Moody Center, trying to get that finished up and being able to get opened up. I know concert dates are coming up, fast approaching in April, so trying to get that under wraps as well. And with that, I'll turn it on to Sharon Hamilton.
All right, thank you, Cesar and Ken. We are looking at, here's my slide, there we go. So I'm Sharon Hamilton. I moved to Austin about 30 years ago. About 25 years ago, one of my favorite PEs convinced me to join ASCE, and you guys know Garo Haratunian. So he pushed me in my career, and really appreciate that that push from him. So in 2002, I got started with Julia Herod with the 150th anniversary committee, and we started doing the Kids Museum, Engineers Day at the Kids Museum. Been doing that with Linda Barlow for the last almost 20 years now, and got to work on, Ken mentioned, I've done city permitting for about 400 projects. I've had the opportunity to work on some really big programs here in Austin. Austin Clean Water Program, working for the amazing Therese Baer. Got to rewrite some of the land development code. That was about 100 projects. Worked for Jose and Rick Guerra. Got to work on some UT projects. That's where I met Jim. It's also where I met Cesar. So we have lots of construction management under the company, QA/QC, plan review, all kinds of stuff. Since then, I've been working on utility relocations under the 183 South, worked on the advanced metering infrastructure for Austin Water, worked at Austin Water for a little while. So, we help engineering teams get their preliminary alignments in place, assist you with identifying code compliance issues and any constraints. We help you work through those variances and get your permits. So with the number of projects we've done, we've seen just about everything. So what I'm working on right now primarily is the corridor program for City of Austin. We've got about 100 different locations of work. You can see those on the map. All the major corridors in Austin that are not highways. So William Cannon, Slaughter, Burnett Road, South Lamar, North Lamar, all of those, working with Mike Trimble and Susan Daniels on those and Randy Harvey. And we're actually rewriting the land development code again. So I get to do that for a second time here. We're looking for some flexibility for the upcoming major transportation projects, Project Connect, Corridor Program, and potentially I-35. So that's enough about me. I get to introduce the speaker today, Jim Shackelford. He's going to talk to us about moving Red River, which was not an easy project. I got to work with Jim at the North End Zone. I got that project after I'd had my PE for 2 whole weeks, Jim. I don't know if you knew that. So Jim is an architect, UT grad, 40 plus years of experience here in Austin from the 80s to early 2000s, working on private development, has $2 billion worth of experience in that time frame. And then Jim came to UT and has been working for OFPC as a project manager, and then eventually as director, now in charge of, hundreds of millions of dollars of work. Some of the numbers, I'm gonna read them off for you. Jim's been in charge of over 7.5 million square feet of building space and over $3.5 billion. So those are some amazing stats, Jim. Jim got to work on Dell Medical, the DKR Stadium expansion, North and South End Zone, Engineering Education and Research Center, and then a little bit of personal information. Jim's been married to his wife, Debbie, for over 40 years. They have 3 adult kids and 3 grandkids. So Jim will talk to us about moving Red River. There's Jim. Then we have Michael Uyeda, who I have not had the chance to meet yet, but my husband has. Cesar's been working with Michael. Architect and lead AP, also UT grad. Michael's the associate director for the Office of Capital Planning and Construction, has over 30 years of experience in public and private sector, and was a senior project manager at OFPC before this gig. So Michael's going to talk to us about a case study for the DKR South End Zone. So I will hand it off to Jim. Jim, it's good to see you again. And
Well,
take it
likewise,
away.
Sharon, I want to thank you for all your kind words. It's been a pleasure working with you through the years, and you certainly didn't come across as an inexperienced engineer when we were working on the North End Zone. You handled all of that very, very well. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to assume that everyone sees my screen. Tell me if you're not seeing my screen. Otherwise, I'm going to start. So I put together a presentation. I titled it Fast Break. We're moving Red River Street. And the rendering of the Moody Center that you see on the slide here is the reason why we're moving Red River Street. And I'll explain that in a moment. This is an artist's view of a building that's currently under construction and is scheduled to be complete in April of next year. Well, now then we're stuck here. There we go. So this was the site of the Moody Center looking north, and you can see there to the right of the screen, Red River Street and its location a couple of years ago. To the north there, you can see Mike Myers Track and Soccer Stadium. Further north, the LBJ Library, and to the northwest, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. We chose the site of this parking lot as the site of the Moody Center because of its proximity to campus and other athletics facilities, as well as support infrastructure such as the Maynard Garage, which sits on the west side of the Mike Myers Track and Soccer Stadium. So this is another view of the site looking to the southwest. And from here, of course, you can see downtown Austin, and you can see to the left there, the Irwin Center, which is the building that is being replaced by the Moody Center. So here's an early view of the concept design for the Moody Center. And you'll see why we're moving Red River Street. You'll note that the Moody Center's eastern portion projects into the current location of Red River Street, meaning that in order to build the Moody Center, which the university very much desired to do, we would have to relocate Red River Street. So we went about the task of planning how to relocate Red River Street. But really, it's not really relocating it so much as just putting it back where it was, because as this 1900 Sanborn map of Austin shows, Red River Street was originally in the place that we're putting it right now. You can see there for reference, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard running east and west, and that's the southern, generally the southern edge of our campus. And you can see Red River at the time in 1900 was pretty much a straight shot from the river all the way up through our campus and to the east of the university campus at that time. By 1971, Red River was still in that location, just immediately east of the football stadium. Again, for reference, you can see Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard there running east and west, and the location of Red River Street bisecting the campus between the stadium and the LBJ Library. By 1988, however, the street had been relocated to its current location. And that was really due to two reasons. The first being the location of the LBJ Library and wanting its site and the Thompson Conference Center here to be contiguous to the rest of the main campus at UT. So Red River was pushed over closer to 35, and then it was doglegged down here at its southern extremity to make way for the Irwin Center and for parking for the Irwin Center. And then what you don't see is it was doglegged around the Brackenridge Hospital heliport and the parking garage that served the Brackenridge Hospital. And of course, just a couple of years ago, Red River was still in its current location. We had straightened it out south of the Irwin Center as part of the medical school, the Dell Medical School, in order to create a site that was large enough to handle the Dell Seton Medical Center at the University of Texas, which is now in operation. So the existing Red River Street kind of wound through campus, and you can see here's the dogleg I was referring to around the Brackenridge Hospital tract, which is now, Brackenridge is gone, and the new Dell Seton Medical Center is in its place. So we desired to put Red River back to where it was, north of MLK and actually north of the Irwin Center. In this graphic, it shows the scope of our work going up to Dean Keaton. And then south, you'll note that there's a concept that it would be straightened out south of 15th Street, and that work is getting underway shortly. In order to do that, however, we had to do a land swap with the city of Austin. It involved about a little over 5 acres of land that the university would be swapping for the right-of-way along Red River Street. And so here's the right-of-way that the university would be acquiring. And then this is the right-of-way that the city of Austin would be acquiring from the university as part of this arrangement. Our project team, the University of Texas, is the owner. Our office, Michael's in mine, Capital Planning Construction is providing project management services. Our civil engineer is Martinez Moore. Our landscape architect is Asakura Robinson, and our construction manager at risk is Spallglass Construction. And I don't think we could have a better team on this project. Everyone has performed admirably in the face of adversity. And part of that adversity comes from dozens of stakeholders, both internal to UT Austin, our outside counsel that's helped us immensely with the acquisition of property, as well as negotiating leases with the Moody Center developer, the city of Austin and a number of departments there, some private utility providers, Texas Department of Transportation, and the Bicycle Advisory Council. We had a number of schedule constraints on the project. Classes at UT, we do, besides losing football games, we do have classes, and part of classes are final exams. And so we always require contractors to reduce the amount of noise that they make during finals. Football season, we're in close proximity to the football stadium, so we've got to be mindful of that. We're right next to the track and soccer stadium, so we have to be mindful of both track events, including Texas relays and the soccer season. And then there was construction of other projects in close proximity to our work, including the Moody Center, which necessitated our project, but also construction of the south end zone at the Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. There are also activities at the Texas Swim Center. There are events at the Performing Arts Center, and there's daily activities at the Child Care Center, which is right next to our construction site. We involve these stakeholders in a variety of town hall meetings. We also had an interlocal agreement with the city of Austin, and we also scheduled bi-weekly coordination meeting with all contractors in the area, which meant that Spa Glass from our Red River Street realignment project, Hensel Phelps for the Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium South End Zone work, and then Hunt Construction had two projects, the larger one being the Moody Center, and then the smaller one is the Texas Athletics Basketball and Rowing Training Facility, which is necessary because Denton Cooley Pavilion will need to be vacated when the Irwin Center is vacated. We also looked at and spent a good deal of time looking at bicycle pathways in and around our campus, and identified 3 critical areas for bicycle paths as part of our project work. The first one being parking near the Child Care Center. We had parking that was very important for child care parents as they were dropping off and picking up their children before and after school. There's a loading zone, area B, there on the east side of the stadium that's busy. It's used on a daily basis for loading materials into the Texas Club, as well as for game weeks when lots of material come into the stadium. And then finally, parking at Performing Arts, because the Performing Arts Center maintains parking and needs parking on the street on Robert Dedman Drive there on the east side of the facility for their patrons. So we looked at different concepts for bicycles and bicycle pathways and segregating bicycles from other types of traffic. And all ages and abilities suggested buffered bicycle lanes or separated bicycle lanes. And we tried to adhere to that as much as possible with our design for the relocated Red River Street. We looked at different cross sections and looked at different options on how we might do that. These were several different options for traffic areas. And then this was also several different options that we looked at for how to handle bicycles in and around parking, as parking was part of the project also. Also, one of the major considerations for this project was we had to extend utilities. We extended electric utilities from the Harris substation, which is located up here in the northern part of our campus, across Trinity Street and down Robert Dedman Drive to the Moody Center site, which is located here. And you can see we had a dogleg around because the underground here was just too congested to handle very much more in the way of buried utilities. And we also wanted to be able to extend utilities further south for future development on our campus. And so we're able to do that with this configuration. We also, as part of our project, replaced portions of the City of Austin water line that were buried in the street that were old and they were leaking to the point that we had just shut off those portions of the water line and we're relying on other water service for the buildings in that area. So we replaced part of the water lines in the street there. So our initial concept was, we're just going to reroute the street from MLK Boulevard here, just north, following generally the track of Robert Dedman Drive, all the way up to its intersection with Dean Keaton. And Spa Glass put together their phasing plan and began work. And then COVID-19 hit, and so many things changed. But one of the benefits of COVID-19 was because our campus went remote, many of the constraints that we had on our schedule for classes and class schedules and finals all went away. And so we were able to work more effectively without disturbing anyone on campus. And almost as soon as we started work, there were a number of changes that the university desired to make, including adding some scope to repave and realign the paving and parking on Trinity Street. We had to add a retaining wall on the east side of the Recreational Sports Center. And we added a major intersection redesign at Clyde Littlefield Boulevard here and Red River Street. So we've developed individual work plans and logistics plans for each of those areas. This is a typical one for the area around Trinity Street and the Performing Arts Center of how we would do that work and stay on schedule. And then this was a revised plan that showed how each of the phases would be done. And we broke it into phases for several reasons. One, so that we could manage the work more effectively, but also some of the stakeholders had constraints that they imposed on us that we couldn't work in that area during that particular time of year. For instance, work around the stadium between Clyde Littlefield Boulevard here and 20th Street down here needed to be deferred until after the football season this year. So this section, phase C, begins in December of this year. So some progress photos. Early on, we were installing an electric duct bank in Trinity Street. And as you might imagine, there's a lot of conduits that went into that duct bank, and you can start to see how they separated out to get to the Harris substation, which is more duct bank and more conduits going to the substation that will feed the Moody Center. And then here you can see red concrete going in as a safety measure, trying to make sure that in the future, when people excavate and they find red concrete, that they know to stop and to ask questions about what they're digging into. Here's a photo of a typical electric manhole that was installed in a number of places throughout the routing of the duct banks. As part of this project also, we relocated 7 or 8 trees, large diameter oak trees, live oak trees, from their existing location to new locations. We did that to get them out of the way of the Moody Center or out of the way of our relocation of the street. Here you can see a crane has picked one of those trees and preparing it for transport. And there it is on the back of a flatbed truck, getting ready to move to its new location and a new home. And also the city of Austin was moving one of the trees here to a location that I'm not certain exactly where it moved, but it moved to Waterloo Park. We've had a long history of successfully moving dozens of oak trees on our campus as part of other projects. Sharon referenced the South End Zone project a number of years, I'm sorry, North End Zone project a number of years ago. We relocated 16 trees as part of that project. We relocated about 10 as part of the Dell Medical School, and here a smaller number, but no less important. So here you can see a photo that was taken over a year ago of the Moody Center excavation. And you can see here how Red River Street was interrupted. But this also shows in some ways why Red River in many ways should have been relocated, because of its close proximity to the southbound frontage road of I-35. And from Dean Keaton South to MLK, those streets run in very close proximity to each other. And so, by moving Red River further to the west, it actually will benefit traffic flow from downtown northward and vice versa. So here's a photo that was taken a couple of weeks ago of the Moody Center construction. You can see how the Moody Center is starting to take shape. So I referenced the Recreational Sports Center and a retaining wall there. And this is a photo that was taken a little over a year ago. You can see the excavation for the Moody Center there, but you can see the track of the street as it's being relocated to the location to the east of the Recreational Sports Center. And this was an early photo of Recreational Sports Center, which is to the right here. You can see the ground level that was there and how we were beginning to build that retaining wall, make preparations for the retaining wall. That's the retaining wall. Photo was taken a couple of weeks ago. Retaining wall is complete. We're finishing up the flat work at Recreational Sports. And this is important. The ground level of the Recreational Sports building is here. And these are emergency egress doors. So we had to maintain egress through those doors as part of this project. Also, as part of this project was water quality. We inserted several bioswales into the campus landscape. This was one that was on the northern end of the construction. And then here's another view of a completed bioswale. And these were done to, improve the water quality as it comes off of the street and before it gets into Waller Creek. And Waller Creek is one of our most important natural resources on our campus. So in January, we completed the section between DeLoss Dodds Way and Dean Keaton. And so these are a few photos of the completed work. And this is really what the entirety of the street will look like when it's complete. And you can see to the left, you can see the landscaped area. You can see the pedestrian pathway. You can see a tactile buffer between the pedestrian pathway and the bicycle pathway. And then the bicycle pathway is actually on a raised curb that protects it from vehicular traffic on the street here. And then there's a median, and then everything repeats with traffic and bicycle pathway and then pedestrian pathway. And here's one of the bioswales that I referenced earlier, looking at DeLoss Dodds Way. This is actually with the football stadium in the background. So this is an installation that improves the water quality as the street drains off of Red River and before it flows into Waller Creek. This is the repaved portion of Trinity Street. You can see to the right there, the School of Law. They were very concerned about us disrupting their classes. And as it turns out, we didn't disrupt their classes at all because their classes went remote while we were doing that work. And here's the north section bioswale with the Performing Arts Center and Music Recital Hall in the background. And then this is just looking north. And once again, you can see how effective our segregation strategy was with the pedestrian pathways to the outboard, and then the bicycle path, and then finally the traffic, the vehicular traffic in the middle. Part of this project also at the police building, we ran into some buried utilities that were well above the elevation of our sidewalk and our street. So we had to relocate those. There were thermal utilities as well as electric and telecommunications duct banks. And I'm happy to report that all that work is completed now. The street is complete and the retaining wall and sidewalks were all completed before the last home football game. So it was very good to walk by on my way to the stadium this past Saturday and see all that work complete. So in August, this is what Robert Dedman Drive looked like. You can see the retaining wall at Recreational Sports. You can see the Moody Center in the background. One of the things that athletics had asked us to do was to pave this portion of our project before the football season began so that patrons could exit the Manor Garage and head southbound on the paved street and exit to MLK rather than going northbound, which will just make a traffic situation that much worse. So I'm happy to report we are able to do that because before Labor Day, all of that work was completed. We've got the street paved, and it's been in use for every home football game since then. So we do have some ongoing work and some work that will be coming in the future. We're currently working in the intersection of Red River Street and MLK Boulevard, straightening out the street right there. And that work will continue into next year. And then the remaining work north of MLK Boulevard, there's still some work that we need to complete here. And then the work between the Manor Garage and the football stadium will complete in August of next year. And then we've got work at the Clyde Littlefield Red River intersection that will be beginning shortly and will complete next year as well. So with that, I'm going to defer questions and instead turn it over to my colleague, Michael Uyeda, so that he can
be shared screen.
So let me see, how's the best way that I can stop sharing my screen?
Does everybody see my screen?
Yep, we got it.
That's got to be the project, one of our UT Austin's longest project name. When we do work at the stadium, we always like to put pretty much every word in the title. So this is a really long two-line project name. Anyway, so it's the Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, and Darrell K. does not have a period in it, by the way. South End Zone and Stadium Maintenance from Renovation Project. This picture is a previous version of the South End Zone. It's 2018, right before we started constructions in 2019. And it's like sort of superimposed more or less the same current right before the first home game. So they were testing the new Jumbotron. The project team is Jim's in my office, Jim being the director of the Office of Capital Planning and Construction here at UT Austin. Our architect was Populous out of Kansas City. Our civil engineer was Jose I. Engineering and O'Connell Robertson. Manager at risk was Hensel Phelps. Rough gross square footage was about 350,000 gross square foot, including the grandstands. We like to count those as part of this stadium projects. And the schedule was from 2018, started design to August 2021, which was the substantial. They have not substantially completed the project. There's a number of items that are still needed done. We'll talk about that in a second. So time-lapse picture or image. I always like to show this while I'm talking. So we started design in 2018, June, and 2019. Started construction that next month in May 2019. And the date was July 2021, but that to August 2021, right before the first home game. First home game was September 4th. We had a September 3rd, and we just barely got the project completed and occupiable by that Friday night. In fact, I spent Friday evening during the grand opening in the elevator control room. Them alive for the had some trouble with the elevators. This time lapse shows it kind of going through the process, and during that time, PMCS actually replaced the field. So as you saw there for a second there, the field got replaced. Other part that was really interesting is this screen, the Jumbotron, was reconfigured for the original design, which was much more not so widescreen, and it got converted to this widescreen. So they didn't really actually make the screen bigger per se. They just made it a different configuration. Screen. They eventually will be buying a new one to replace the one that they have to go actually all the way across. That's the original plan, but that'll be something in the future. So several unforesees that happened during the construction. We, of course, just like anything else on our campus, while we have pretty good as-built and record documents of where our underground utilities are, they're not always perfect. So we ran into several fairly large utilities that weren't actually in the place they were supposed to be in or weren't actually shown on the drawings. So it held up the excavation of the foundations for quite some time. We also had some problems. One, we had an elevated slab shoring failure, which dropped a portion of the slab on this upper concourse near this west. Also dropped a load on top of the Moncrief Newhouse roof. Now, Moncrief Newhouse is behind the south end zone. It's one of the existing buildings that we fully renovated, but it did drop it through the structure, which required plan on doing. And on the east tower, which is a sort of mirror image of this west tower here, where we have four suites, it's on this east side. That steel structure actually was about 7 inches out of plumb. The valves had to use some brute force with cables and really big come-alongs to try to pull that steel structure back into place. And I think we got it within maybe 4 or 5 inches of out of plumb. But then we modified all the finishes inside and both outside and inside to accommodate that slight out of kilter that the structure ended up in. But the structure was fine. It's just that it was just a little bit out of. Also had, just like any other project here in Austin, we had supply and labor shortages, and we still suffer from that even today. We also suffer from the COVID-19 pandemic, and then the huge freeze we had in February, which lasted probably 10 days, but the impact was probably about 30 days of loss. We also had competition for labor and materials and other things. Main one was Tesla. So, contractors to work on that Tesla plant, because that Tesla plant had other issues. Like Jim was mentioning, there was the Moody Arena construction that happened pretty much all in the same areas right across the street. Red River realignment was happening on either side of the stadium, both north and south. Basketball training facilities just down the street, so catty corner to south end zone. We had to keep runoff and the beads and stuff, the plastic rubber beads that hold the field, that are in the field out of Waller Creek while we're doing this construction. Yeah, security issues. As you can imagine, this area actually had a walkthrough originally for students and faculty and staff going from the parking garage just to the east of the south end zone and the stadium through the lower portions of the south of MNC Moncrief Newhouse to the other side. And so now those folks had to actually take a long way around, either around the stadium or go up east down the Moody Center and back to the west, the other side along MLK. And then of course we had 2 seasons that we had the south end zone out of commission. So we had to time the demolition of the south end zone and the Jumbotron, allow the Jumbotron to stay in place for the first season, take it down and assemble the structure that held up the reconfigured Jumbotron for this season. So it was quite a bit of exercise to make all that work, but we did manage to get it done. The lessons learned, as you can see here, is some image of the Founders Lounge. Now, the Founders Lounge is an exclusive lounge for only the founders, their guests, and the president's office. It's the 2 towers, which have the founders paid $10 million for the suites, and then they get to furnish it the way they want to. We'll see a picture of one suite to give you an idea. First one is never assume you have too much money or time. This project was being done, as you all know, during a period of incredible work being done here in the city of Austin. And so it made labor, materials, everything very expensive and very difficult to demand for sure. Never underestimate the client's potential for dissatisfaction for imperfection. As I told you before, we just barely got the project finished because of other constraints right before the actual grand opening on 9/3. This lounge did not look like this about an hour or 2 before the grand opening. There was boxes and all this furniture wasn't in place. The flowers weren't in. We had just barely put everything out when they opened the doors. For the unprepared, I mean, we were really actually surprised that we managed to get everybody into the building and make it usable. Also the freeze in February. Pretty much most of our other projects had problems with getting done. Last 3 things were probably the really big success to the project. Coordinate with everybody, including the user groups, in this case, athletics and all of their stakeholders. Communicate to everybody on a regular basis, and always help you leverage the ability of both the customer as well as all the team members, from the contractors to the design team, and their ability to figure out ways to make the project go and get it done so that these are the things that we still have to finish. That's why we haven't substantially completed the project, but we're using the facility as a commissioning and testing and turnover. Some finishes are still yet to show up. You really can't tell from this picture. This is a typical suite. They're about 3,000 plus square feet each. But there are some finishes missing here and there that just from supply chain problems to some of them are custom, especially some of this all the furniture in each of the suites is custom for the most part. It's very difficult to get chain problems. Training still needs to be done for all of our stakeholders and staff, how to maintain and operate the facility, document turnover, record drawings, as-built, M&O manuals, etc. So we haven't SC'd it yet, but getting there. So hopefully beginning of November or next month or towards the end of November, we'll be. This picture right here is actually the Bevo Field Club. We have 2 field clubs on either side of this entrance here at the bottom right. That's for the players to the field and go back into Moncrief Newhouse for their locker rooms and support. This is one of the plunge pools. It's actually a hot and cold side. So very interesting right now. This is a picture right before we opened it, and we were not able to get back in there after that. But that's the presentation. So all we can say is hope you enjoyed that. And it was interesting to see some of the spaces that you probably don't get to see unless you're actually one of those or a guy that has a special ticket.
Thank you, Michael. It does look like we have a couple of questions in the Q&A and the chat. The first one is going to be for Jim. I think this was in the part of the presentation that you were reviewing the location of the underground electric utilities. One of the questions was, why did you not just go under the new center? And Jim, I think your mic is still muted, so.
Well, that's a good question. And actually, we went into the new center with electric feeds so that in the future, the feeds could go through the Moody Center and then further south. And that was a decision that was made to prevent us from having to go all the way around, like the graphic showed there. It was the graphic I showed was an early concept that got superseded by the work that we're actually putting in place. I didn't have a slide that showed that, so that's a good catch.
Yeah.
Next
Although
question.
I will point out that it's usually bad practice to feed one building from another, because then you've got a master and slave relationship between the 2 buildings, and you can't take one down without taking down the other.
That's a good point. Next question came also in your presentation, Jim. Did moving the trees to another location prevent the need for additional mitigation measures, specifically for heritage trees?
Well, so yes and no, and I'll explain. It did alleviate any concerns about adding new trees, because we did add some new trees, but I'll point out also the university is not subject to the City of Austin ordinances related to trees or heritage trees, because the university isn't required to get building permits or site development permits from the city as a higher governmental authority. However, being good stewards of the university's resources, we wanted to make sure that we were protecting and moving as many trees as we could. We did lose a handful of trees, but we were able to save those several. And so we mitigated those losses that way.
All right, thank you. Those are all the questions that I received in the chat. We got a comment, excellent presentation, and I couldn't agree more. I want to thank both of you, Jim and Michael, for today's presentations on these really great UT projects. I'm going to turn the floor over to Sam to close out our meeting.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for your attendance at today's luncheon. Our membership chair, Griselda, couldn't join us today. I think probably because she's a proud Aggie and didn't want to hear about UT. But we did have about 65 attendees at the peak. And so that does conclude our luncheon for today. We look forward to seeing you next month on November 16th. If you can't join the EWRI site tour next week of Waterloo Park, you'll get to hear about it from John Rigdon, who's a planner and the Waterloo Greenway's Director of Planning and Design. We look forward to seeing you next month, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.